If the fence rests, let's lay it down. Gonna dig deep, wave that verdict round. The defense rests, time to analyze. With the evidence, we'll unveil the crime. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.
Good morning, my little poppadoms. How are we? Welcome back to the Defence Rests, where justice is only served when it's an honest fight. I hope you all had an amazing weekend. Good morning, Christine. Welcome in. Welcome. I hope your weekend was marvellous. I will say,
you have the opportunity to present this case to you. The state has the obligation to prove the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the standard that you're going to hear from the judge. You're going to hear throughout your deliberations and throughout this trial. We have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. There's a lot of folks in this courtroom right here that you see. And so we are the prosecution. We represent the state. We have the honor of representing the state in this particular case. The defendant sits over there. That is Zachary Hughes, along with his attorneys, and they represent him in this particular case. But there's many more other individuals in this case. We have the court reporter. She's very important. She is taking down everything that we're saying, recording, so we can have a record of this entire case at its conclusion. And so that's what she'll be doing, and she'll also be marking exhibits. So if you see her over there writing on things, that's what she's doing. She's marking the exhibits in which we will identify things that we will be presenting to you for your review. This is Madam Clerk. She's involved with a lot of paperwork and handles all the evidence that we submit into the court. So she'll be handling all the exhibits that you will get to review upon your deliberation. And of course, we have the judge up here. And if you'll notice, the judge is a pretty important person. He's got a black robe. He gets to sit a little higher than the rest of us. There's a reason for that, because he is the referee in this case. And he's going to be calling balls and strikes. He's going to be telling us what the law is. And when one of the parties has an objection, he's going to say whether you're right or whether you're wrong. And because there are rules in this courtroom, ladies and gentlemen, the rules are officiated by the judge to make sure that we maintain the rules and decorum in this courtroom and the evidence is presented to you in the proper way. But the most important people in this room, ladies and gentlemen, are you. As the judge said, you're the triers of fact. You decide what the facts are. And the great thing about serving as a juror is that you don't leave your common sense at the door. You bring it with you in here. And you get to listen to the testimony that'll come right from this chair right here. And you get to look at the evidence that's presented in your deliberations. And you can see it along the way of how this case progresses. You'll hear different kinds of evidence. So the judge said, you hear direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. They're both very powerful pieces of evidence. They can be used in any way in which you accept them. Direct evidence is simple. It's something that somebody can see, taste, or smell, something that they see. If you see somebody commit a violent crime, that's direct evidence that they saw that person there. Circumstantial evidence can be just as powerful. For example, if you look outside before you go to bed and you see your lawn nice and green, and you wake up and it's covered in snow and the footprints walking through the snow, well, you know that somebody walked through your yard from the time you went to bed and the time you woke up. You don't know who it is, but you know somebody did because you can see footprints. You can derive information from that to form a logical conclusion. Another good example of circumstantial evidence is DNA evidence. If you have DNA in a certain location, you can derive that that person was at that location at that particular time, even though no one may be testified that they actually saw him there, but the DNA shows that he was or she was there at a particular time. Very powerful circumstantial evidence. So, ladies and gentlemen, this case is about the murder of Christina Parcell. And the state intends to prove that Zachary Hughes did, in fact, murder Christina Parcell. You have a number of charges that you're going to be deliberating on. You have harassment charges, you have a burglary first-degree charge, and you have a murder charge. Harassment is basically doing something that would intrude into the personal life of somebody, causing mental anguish. Burglary first degree means you went into somebody's home for the purpose of committing a violent crime. And then, of course, murder is an angry heart. We have to show that Zach Hughes had an angry heart. He was mad. And you can derive that information from any of the testimony, any of the evidence that we have that we present to you. So in this case, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear about a number of characters. The main character is Christina Parcell. She was murdered on October 13th, 2021. And she was living in the Canebrake neighborhood with her sister, Tina Parcell, and Christina's daughter, Mello. They were living in that neighborhood in a house in Canebrake. And Christina Parcell had been going through a very tremendous child custody dispute with John Mello since Aida was 3 years old. At the time, Aida was 9. For almost 6 years, they've been battling custody over Aida Mello. And that custody dispute raised to a certain level beginning in October of 2020 when John Mello and Aida Mello went to Italy. And John took Aida Mello to Italy, and Christina fought to get her back. And in April of 2021, Christina obtained Aida's custody. And they came back from Italy, and that's how they ended up living in the Cambridge neighborhood. So the question is, how did Zach Hughes become involved in this case? Well, Zach Hughes had a relationship with John Mello starting in about October of 2020, around the time when he left for Italy. And that relationship grew. And it grew to the point where Zach Hughes began inserting himself into this custody battle at the behest of John Mello. And they began doing things like sending photos of her to the neighbors in an effort to shame her, an effort to show that she's a bad mother. And as the custody dispute it elevated into a situation where custody might not go in John Mello's favor. And at that point, Zach Hughes made the ultimate decision. Ladies and gentlemen, I hold in my hand the indictments from the grand jury charging Zach Hughes with harassment and burglary first and murder. And the grand jury, true bill of these cases, that came out, and these are the charging documents. And while the defendant at this point in this case is certainly clothed in innocence, once you hear the evidence from that chair, you hear the evidence that's presented to you, you're going to find beyond a reasonable doubt, and the evidence will show that Zach Hughes is a cold-blooded killer. And he committed murder, he committed harassment, and he committed burglary first. Thank you.
Thank you. I make this court, the defense is going to defer opening until our case. Thank you.
Stay. All right, Your Honor. The state calls Sarah Young.
Wow, that was quick.
Just place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Sarah Young,
Ms. Young, with whom are you employed?
the Greenville County Sheriff's Office.
And what do you do for the Greer County Sheriff's Office?
I'm the 911 tape research analyst.
And what does a 911 take research?
Oh,
Essentially, we pull 911 calls for the solicitor's office and the officers.
And so how does 911 operate?
Essentially, when a 911 call comes into
Okay. Thank you.
dispatch, dispatch determines whether or not which agency the caller is needing. So whether or not they need police, fire, EMS, they'll get information from the caller and they'll transfer them to the proper agency.
Okay.
And are the calls recorded?
Yes,
And when do they begin recording the call?
automatically. As soon as someone calls in a 911, it automatically starts recording.
So while it's ringing on, say, the caller side, it's recording on your side?
Yes, sir.
Is that fair? And do y'all maintain all of those records?
Yes, sir.
Inside the 911 office?
Yes, sir.
And are those records kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 7 and ask if you recognize that.
Yes, sir, I do.
Are those your initials on there?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what is this?
That is a recording of the 911 call.
All right. I'm referring, is this a recording of a 911 call on October 13th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
And you have your records up there
Yes, sir.
to help you remember?
Yes, sir.
It was a long time ago, wasn't it?
That it was.
So do you know about what time this call came in?
The call came in at 11 a.m.
At 11 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
And do you know what number called it?
Yes, sir.
What number called it?
The number we have recorded is 864-436-2499.
And do you know who was calling? Does it tell you?
The caller did not give his name.
Did not give his name. And do you know what address that it was calling for?
Yes, sir. The address provided was 122 Canebrake Drive.
Do you know if that's in Greenville County?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, State moves Exhibit 7 into evidence.
no objection, Your Honor.
Objection, states number cited, comes into evidence.
Now, the state would like to publish it.
Your emergency.
122 Kingsway Drive.
NJ Police Fire EMS.
I'm sorry, I think I might have a death.
Okay, let me connect you.
Walked in my fiance's house, she wouldn't answer my call, there's a very weird smell, I can't get her to come around.
Okay, let me
Laid all over the floor.
let me connect you to EMS, sir. Hold on just a moment.
Right.
EMS Fire. What's the address of the emergency?
122 Kingsway Drive.
122 Canebrake Drive. And what's another street for Canebrake Drive?
I don't know, Southeast Drive.
Okay, in Greer.
Yeah.
All right, the phone number you're calling.
I'm sorry?
The phone number you're calling from?
864-436-2499.
864-436-2499. Has anyone tested positive COVID-19 or been COVID-19 positive?
No.
No, thank you.
I just walked in, I can't reach my fiance, I come in the back door, she's in the door here. I smell some weird smell, I think I can throw it out on the floor.
Okay, you smell a weird smell and you flat on the floor?
Yeah.
Okay, just one moment. Is she breathing?
No.
Okay, then we need to get her, turn her over, make sure she's flat on her back, nothing under her neck. You have something to put over her nose and mouth, and we're gonna start CPR, sir.
Okay, I think she's gone.
You think she's gone?
Yeah.
Okay, and what makes you think she's gone? I'm sorry? Well, we're gonna put one on her back, and then I'm gonna walk you through the steps to do that. If you think that she's, able to do the CPR, then we can. I have no problem walking you through that. There's brain matter everywhere? Somebody has shot her? Okay, all right. All right, you think that she's, not viable? Okay, so look, so tell me why you think she's dead. Eyes are open? Okay, all right. And a lot of blood, okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. All right, give me just a moment here, sir. Give me just a moment. So it looks like somebody may have broke in and shot her in the head.
Oh.
Okay, I understand. Okay. I'm sorry, say it again. I've got some people coming, sir. Do you see anybody, still nearby, an assailant or anything? No?
No.
All right. The front door was locked? Okay. Yes.
And then I came down and smelled this weird smell.
Right.
And I walked in, I could see there's like a red store.
Yes. Okay, I have everybody coming. I'm sending the paramedics to help now. Stay on the line. I'll say exactly what to do next. Make sure to not, move anything, leave everything as it is.
Yeah.
And, if you can, go ahead and step out of the house, and that way, wait for the, paramedics and the police at the front. Yeah, I would go back out the way you came to, keep the scene as it is.
Yep.
And then if they want to go through the front when they get there, then they'll let you know, but I go back out the same way that you came in.
Okay.
And leave everything as you found it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't understand
However it is
the
right
thing
now,
they're saying.
Let them know you didn't know if you turned it on or off, but just leave it as it is right this moment. Really weird.
Yeah, almost chemical.
Like a gas or a chemical? More like a gas smell?
No, it's more like something which is a pesticide.
A pesticide smell? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and get out the door and go to the front and wait for them at the front, of the house. Leave everything as it is. Is there anything else that I can do for you, sir? All right, I've got them all coming. All right, thank you. Sir, this is the sheriff's office.
Is that the recording you're retrieving from 911?
Yes, sir.
Answer your questions, defense counsel may have.
Cross-examination.
No question, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Young.
No, we asked the witness to excuse.
Any excuse?
Your Honor, the state would call Deputy Chris Robinson.
Hot mic. Hot mic. Hot jambalaya. The 911 call didn't do it, but he was manufacturing the CSAM
Do you solemnly swear
with
or
the
affirm to
victim,
tell
and
the
he's
truth, the
now
whole
in
truth,
prison
and
for
nothing
it.
but the truth, so help you God?
What's CSAM?
Please state your name for the record.
Chris Robinson,
With whom are you employed?
Greenville County Sheriff's Office,
And what's your current rank?
Master Deputy.
Master Deputy. And what do you do for the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
Currently on uniform patrol.
And what does that entail?
Answer your day-to-day calls, 911 calls,
How long have you been with the department?
10 years.
I'm going to refer you back to October 13th of 2021. Do you remember getting a call to the Cambridge neighborhood?
I do.
Okay. How did you get that call?
It was just a call for service at the time. Someone called 911 and I responded to that address.
Where were you located when you got that call?
Pelham Road at the Q2.
How far away is that to the Cambridge?
A couple miles, maybe.
How long did it take you to get there?
Just a few minutes.
Now, did you go with your blue lights on, or did you
Absolutely. Just for the nature of the call, yeah, we responded a license siren.
So what address did you arrive to? Remember?
I'm not 100% the exact-
122 Cambridge?
That would be it, yes, sir.
And so what happened when you got there?
So once I arrived on scene, I made contact with the complainant, Mr. Post. He was standing in the driveway. I was kind of briefly spoke to him, trying to figure out kind of what was going on. He told me that he arrived home or arrived to the victim's address when she wasn't answering her phone. So he said he went in the back door, was unlocked, and that's where he located her.
So there's
So
a
at that
backdoor
point,
reference in every
another deputy
trial.
arrived on scene. So we decided to go in there and clear. We went in the back door. He said it was unlocked. They always leave it unlocked. So that's the way we made entry. Went inside immediately. As soon as we got inside, immediately smelled some kind of chemical odor. It was kind of unusual. We weren't 100% sure what it was. I could never figure it out, but we cleared the residence. I located Miss Parcell in the living room. There was blood all over the floor. Looked like there was drag marks on the floor where she was had been drugged by her feet or drugged somehow. She had multiple lacerations around her upper, her face or neck area.
All right, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to take you back a little bit. Now, when you get out of your car, did you walk down the driveway?
Yes, sir.
And what cars were parked there?
There were two cars in the driveway. They were kind of parked one behind the other. One, I think it was Mercedes, was the back one. I don't remember which one the first one was.
And where did you encounter Mr. Post?
He was in front of the first car closest to the house.
And then that's where did you obtain some information from him about what was going on?
Correct. Like I said, the basic information about, or he came home and he couldn't get her on the phone, so that's why he showed up.
And so your next item to do was to clear the house.
Correct.
And did you do that alone, or do you?
No, Master Deputy Brookshire was there. He went inside with me. We did it together because we didn't know what was inside or who else was inside.
So at that point, you have no idea what you're walking into.
Correct.
Is that standard procedure to have two individuals clear the house?
Yes, sir.
And did y'all in fact go and clear the house in this case?
We did. We cleared the entire house. Didn't find anyone else inside besides Miss Parcell.
Were you wearing a body camera?
I was.
And was it functioning properly
Correct.
that day?
It was.
Have you reviewed that body camera?
I have.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit A and see if you recognize that.
Yes, sir. That has my body camera on it. I signed it there.
Those are your initials right there?
Yes.
So is this your body camera that you were wearing that day?
Yes, sir.
When you made a call to 122 Cambridge?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, State moves Exhibit 8 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit A comes into evidence.
Master Deputy, I'm going to show you this body camera and we can start and stop it. I
Oh,
want you to kind
okay.
of walk us through what you're doing and what you see
Okay.
as you're going through and you're clearing the scene with Officer Brookshire.
Yes.
Oh. So she was compiling against him, basically, with some evidence. Of course, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I could take.
So what is that there?
That's us arriving on scene, or me arriving on scene. Do 122 Cambridge.
All right, and so is that the first time you saw this location?
Yes, sir.
And are those the two cars right there that you can see the silver one in the front?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And there was a red one behind it, I believe. All right. Is that where you encountered Mr. Post?
Yes, sir. Initially.
And what is Mr. Post doing?
He was making a phone call. I'm not sure exactly who he was on the phone with, and we're just I'm getting basic information from him, kind of figured out what was going on, kind of what he saw, and what.
Are you gathering information from Mr. Post?
Yeah, just basic information. Try to figure out exactly what we have.
Now you have audio on your body camera, don't you?
Yes, sir.
All right. We're not playing the audio for these purposes.
Okay.
Ta-da!
So yeah, just basic information, trying to figure out, when was the last time you talked to her, things like that. I could see that he was, dressed nicely. He wasn't. There's nothing on him like where there's been a struggle or anything like that too. So he didn't seem like he was in a hurry. So it seemed like there was she was deceased, just according to his body language. If that makes sense.
And so where are you going down here? The side of the house?
Yes, sir. He pointed us to the back. This is the back door. He said that that was always unlocked, and that's where he made entry. So this is where we decided to go because we knew that this door was more than likely unlocked, having good access to the house.
So is this your first entry into the house?
Yes, sir.
Now, did Mr. Post tell you which door he entered into the house?
He did. He said he'd come in the back door because he said they always kept it unlocked. So, and that was the door that we decided to make.
So the door being open right there was not concerning to you?
No, because he already said he was already in it. He had already been through, and that's where he went in.
Oh.
So I'm just talking to Master Deputy Brookshire here. We're just kind of talking about.
So she was fabricating stuff against him to frame him or something. She was abusing her daughter, her own daughter. That doesn't make sense. Why would it? Wow. I'd have to dig a bit deeper into this one, I think.
Back and forth about what we see inside the house, kind of what each other's going to do, kind of your primary job responsibility, and that's all standard.
And in clearing the house, what is the purpose of clearing the house?
One, to secure any kind of evidence, and also make sure there's no one else inside, maybe no other victims or the suspect as well.
So where is Deputy Brookshire?
He's to my right. He's holding on. There's a hallway on the right side of the house.
So what did you just see right there?
Miss Parcell's body.
Okay, so that was the room where you found Christina Parcell?
Correct, in the front living room area.
And y'all continue to search the house for any suspects?
Yes, sir. We're just continuing to clear. I had him hold the hallway, and I kind of just moved up and cleared kind of behind him up to him. And then we started clearing the bedrooms down the hallway. We're sitting there just kind of talking our way through this, kind of, hey, what do you see?
And are you conscious not to disturb any part of the crime scene as well, as best you can?
Correct. Try not to touch anything. Obviously, opening the doors or whatnot, we kind of have to push them open. But we're not kind of rummaging through anything or opening any drawers, or we're just looking for humans at this point, so the big areas where somebody could hide.
Y'all just continue to clear the house?
Yes, sir. I believe that was the last bedroom that we cleared at that point. I believe we come out, we secure the house, so nobody goes in or out.
Now, are you corresponding with other officers outside the house as well about what's going on? Or are you reporting back to anybody?
Talking on the radio, just kind of letting them know what we have at this point. Been a supervisor on the way. They always respond to these kind of incidents.
Is that the front door right there to your right?
Yes, sir.
That's not the door you entered into.
No, sir. That's the front door to the residence that leads into the front living room area that Ms. Parcell was located in. At this point, I'm just checking to make sure there's no signs of life. If we needed to render any kind of medical aid. Looking for any kind of weapons to make sure it wouldn't, she did it to harm herself too.
And then now you're exiting
The back door.
the back door. So it's about. So did you cut your body camera off about that time? Let me ask you this. That's about when you finished clearing the house.
Correct.
Right. Your body camera still continues to operate.
Correct.
Do you remember what you did after you cleared the house?
Went back and talked to Mr. Post, got some basic information, names, kind of the last time he spoke with her, things like that. And just waited on everybody else to show up.
Did y'all begin putting crime scene tape up?
Yes, sir.
Those
Just,
kind of things?
yes, sir. Just locking down the house, making sure nobody goes in or out, just to keep the crime scene preserved as best we could.
And as far as Mr. Post is concerned, did he appear to have any blood on him? Anything like that?
No, he was dressed pretty nicely that day. Sports coat, nice slacks.
You'll just answer any questions.
All right, cross-examination.
Yeah, please report. Just curious, Deputy Robinson, at the time this happened, were you a master deputy?
I was.
You talked a little bit about some of the comments Mr. Post made to you after you arrived on the scene. You testified to that in direct examination. I want to talk about some of those comments. Master Deputy Robinson, isn't it true that roughly about a minute, 25 seconds in to your body camera, Mr. Post told you that he was there every day, or practically every day?
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, he's moved in the body camera. There was no exception as it relates to audio. The whole video and audio is in.
Overruled.
So if I remember correctly, yeah, I mean, he says he's there often.
Isn't it true that roughly at about 12 minutes and 45 seconds in, somewhere in there, Mr. Post told you that he did not at that point feel comfortable continuing to talk to you? Do you remember that?
I do when I was asking questions.
And isn't it true that while you were talking to him, he directed you to another deputy, a Deputy Dan Bell, who might know more about the situation? Is that true? You remember that? At about 13 minutes and 35 seconds in, roughly.
I believe that was with a different case.
But while you were there that day, isn't it true that Mr. Post directed you to Deputy Bell as someone who might know more about this case? Is that true?
Not about this direct case, but I guess he's been involved with the victim before.
At some point, was Mr. Post placed in the back of a patrol car that day?
He was. He was the first one to find her, so standard procedures to kind of detain him until investigators could arrive to speak with him.
And at the time, isn't it true that well, start that. 1 second. I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you. You redirect.
No redirection.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the state calls Bradley Post.
Can counsel approach?
So Hughes and Mello were previously charged with harassment for allegedly sending nude photos of Christina Parcell to her fiance's address and neighbours. After 3 years and continuations, the murder trial began on Tuesday. 33-year-old Zachary David Hughes, accused of fatally stabbing his best friend's ex-wife. Christina Parcell's fiance, Bradley Post, found her dead with cuts and stab wounds in their Greer home on October 13th, 2021. Post describes a chemical odour in the house and Parcell's body surrounded by rose petals. Hughes, a well-known pianist, was arrested in her death and was being tried on charges of murder, harassment and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. Circuit Court Judge Patrick Fant III is presiding over the trial that was delayed last month because not enough qualified jurors could be seated. Greenville-based attorney Andrew Mormon and Mark Moyer are defending Hughes, blah, blah, blah. Witkins predicted the trial would continue for more than a week. During the opening statements, Wilkins told the jury his team needed to prove how Hughes had an evil heart. Hughes began inserting himself in a custody battle, and because the dispute elevated into a situation where custody might not go in John Mello's way, at that point, Zach Hughes made the ultimate decision, ladies and gentlemen. Right, okay. Nothing like a little bit of speculation there. Just saying. Sorry, I'm catching myself up. Still on a sidebar. And I've updated the stream. It's a brand new stream, brand new thumbnail, brand new description. This is Mello, yes? It looks like it anyway.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Bradley Post.
Oh, sorry, Post.
Good afternoon, Mr. Post.
Oh, so this is the fiance.
Where do you currently reside?
Hang on. Wasn't Post her fiance at the time he found her? Why is he in orange? Or did I read it wrong? He's in time. Hughes and Mello were previously charged. Yeah, Christina Parcell's fiance, Bradley Post, found her dead with the cuts and stab wounds. Why is he in orange? The fuck?
Greenville County Detention Center.
Right.
And have you been charged with a crime?
Yes.
Do you know the victim in this case, Christina Parcell?
Yes.
How do you know her?
We dated and were engaged on and off about 6 years.
And about when did y'all start dating?
2016.
And in 2016, where were y'all living?
I was living at my house in Rivoli Lane. She was living in her house or apartment. I don't remember what she had at the time.
Were you aware of a child custody dispute between Christina Parcell and John Mello?
Yes.
And was this custody dispute ongoing from 2016 up until 2021?
Oh
Yes.
my God.
And how were you involved?
Really?
In the child custody dispute?
I would listen to her talk. Sometimes I'd assist her to
That
go
poor
to
kid.
an attorney, whatever, but she'd just tell me about what it was.
Was it contentious?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Was there a lot going on in it?
Yes.
Was John Mello fighting very hard from his perspective?
Yes,
And Christina was fighting as well.
yes.
So they were both slinging shit at
Now,
each
do you
other,
know
wasting their energy instead of
where
spending time with their
Christina
children.
was living on October 13th, 2021?
On Cambridge Drive.
Is that 122 Cambridge?
Yes,
And do you know who was living at that house at that time?
yes.
Who was living there?
Her sister and her daughter and her,
Okay, what is her sister's name?
Tina.
Tina Parcell.
Yes,
I've got a sister called Tina.
And did you have the occasion to go to that house?
yes,
And would Christina Parcell go to your house on Rivoli Lane?
yes, sometimes.
And what kind of car was Christina driving at that time?
Lexus,
And who owned that car?
it was mine.
All right, did you offer her to be able to drive that car?
Did she
Yes,
share it with Karen?
And did Christina Parcell have a cell phone?
yes.
And did you assist her with the payments on that cell phone?
She had actually 2 cell phones. She had her own sometimes and mine also. Yes,
Did y'all communicate
yes.
between those 2 phones?
Oh,
Do you know about when Christina
Oh.
moved to Cambridge?
I would have to think about it. I'm thinking maybe,
so the two of them were in on the CSAM. Yeah. So him and his fiance, which is the victim, were fiddly diddling and recording.
April, May, somewhere in that time frame.
And did you have the occasion, as part of the child custody dispute, did Christina Parcell have to go to Italy?
Yes,
And do you know the circumstances surrounding
So
that?
have I got the facts right so far? I'm on the right train.
Would have to go to Italy to get her child? Can you tell the jury what your understanding of those circumstances were?
Mr. Mello kidnapped the daughter and left the country.
Do you know about when that was? If you can't remember, it's not.
It was probably 6 months before April, whatever that works out to be.
And as a result of that, what did Christina do when Aida moved to Italy with
That would be
John Mello?
November.
She found out where he was located. She contacted her congressman and the State Department. And
I'll
they-
catch up.
And did she attempt to obtain the return of Aida back to the United States?
Yes,
How did she do that?
through the State Department. I think it was the Hague Agreement.
And did Christina actually fly over to Italy?
Yes,
Do you know how many times?
twice.
And were you assisting her and helping her throughout this process?
What do you mean?
Financially, were you helping her?
Some, but she was receiving contributions and reimbursements from those organizations that help women like that.
Women obtain the return of their children
That's
taken,
correct.
taken abroad.
Yes,
And so did you emotionally support her? Are you involved? Did she tell you what's going on?
yes,
And so do you remember did Christina ever get the return of her daughter?
yes.
Do you remember when that was?
April, May timeframe of the year.
Of 2021?
Yes,
I'm going to take you back to October 13th of 2021. Do you remember that day?
I do.
Can you tell us what you did that day starting in the morning?
Well, she had a job interview and
She is Christina Parcell?
yes, Christina Parcell had a job interview. Typically, when she had something critical, I would call and try to make sure she was up. And she was. And then when she was driving to the interview, she called me and we talked for a while. And then she was a couple minutes from her interview, and so she hung up.
As far as you know, did she go to that interview?
Yes,
And then when she was at that interview, what did you do?
generic things, common things around the house, had to clean up and do laundry and dishes and things like that.
And then did you ever attempt to
Little house
contact
bitch.
Christina?
Yes,
About when did you attempt to try and contact her?
I think it's around 11 o'clock plus or minus somewhere in there.
And so how did you do that?
By phone?
And were you successful?
No,
So as a result of your unsuccessful attempt to contact her, what'd you do?
I thought I should probably go over and see how she's doing.
And did you do that?
I did.
How did you get there?
I drove my car,
What kind of car did you drive?
Mercedes.
Is it red?
Yes,
When you drove there, where'd you park it?
in their driveway.
And when you arrived to 122 Canebrake, what did you do?
I went to the front door and rang the doorbell.
And were you able to enter?
No, she didn't answer.
So then what did you do?
I walked around the back door because frequently they'd leave the back door unlocked. And I walked into the back door.
The jury just saw the body camera of Chris Robinson. Did you see him go in the house?
See who?
Deputy Chris Robinson, the officer who you spoke to, the first person you spoke to on scene.
I may have, but I don't recall who he was because there were several people.
And the
there.
door that he used, was it the door that you used to enter? Do you know what door he used?
I think they went to the front door. No, they might have went to the back door. That's right.
Is that the door that you?
Oh,
used
there's another
to-
backdoor
so you
reference.
did enter the
Okay.
house.
Right. Again, I'm not sure whether it was the front door or the back.
Where's
door,
the
but they-
Walmart?
And so, what did you do when you walked inside the house?
It was dark, quiet, and so I walked back to, down the hallway to see if she was in the bathroom or the shower, and it was all dark. And I looked on the floor, and right at the entrance of the living room and off that hallway, there were petals from like a rose. And as I looked into the room, and I saw her on her back.
And
What's the
when you saw
significance of
her,
the rose petals? Anyone?
on her back, was there a lot of blood around the room?
Yes.
What did you do?
I walked over and yelled at her and then called 911.
And when you called 911, what were you requesting?
I told them who I was and where I was, and we needed, I guess, an ambulance or, and police assistance.
Oh.
At this time, on October 13th, did you know where John Mello was located?
I assumed he was in Italy.
All right, Mr. Post. I'm going to show you some envelopes. I'm going to refer you sort of back to around June of that same year, 2021. And I'm going to show you some envelopes and ask you if you recognize these envelopes. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, but why? Why?
I'll start with Exhibit 1.
What's the significance? I don't get it.
I'm going to stand this way. I'm going to start with Exhibit 1. And do you recognize that document?
Yes.
Okay. Tell this jury about how you came in.
He's certainly not nuanced about that trial, that's for sure.
Contact.
You know, telling that.
It was mailed to me.
Okay. And is your name on it?
Yes.
And the return address is a P.O. box. Whose P.O. box is
I'm
that?
trying to put moisturizer on my feet.
And when about was it mailed to you?
June 30th.
Did you receive other envelopes as well?
Yes.
Okay. Tell this jury about how that happened.
Be a little more specific.
So tell this jury you received an envelope. What did you do once you received it? And did you receive other envelopes?
I received the envelope. I opened it because it was very suspicious, with my return address. And I looked at it, and then I called my attorney
Why did you call your attorney?
because of the contents inside.
Can you explain, can you describe the contents?
Yes, there were naked pictures of Miss Parcell. And if I remember right, there was a mailing list of which would kind of indicate that they were going to be sent also to those locations.
Oh,
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 2. Is that a similar envelope as well?
Yes.
And did you open all these envelopes?
No, I did not.
On State's Exhibit 2, what is the address that it was mailed to?
It was mailed to me, but my name was misspelled.
And then I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 3. Another envelope.
Yes.
And is it a similar envelope to the other ones that you received?
Yes.
And what is the address on that?
I'm 24. It's 25. It was my neighbor's.
So 25 is your neighbor's house.
Yes.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 4. You recognize that envelope?
Yes.
Where was that envelope?
It was sent to an establishment that I spent a lot of time with.
And what is the return address on there?
It's mine.
How did you obtain this one if it was sent to another establishment?
I had known since the very first one that others may be sent to people. And so since I knew the owner very well, I told him that he may be receiving an envelope with those dimensions. And I said, if he does, I'd appreciate a call back.
And State's Exhibit 5? Is that another envelope?
Yes.
And what is the address there?
My address.
And the return address is,
My P.O. box.
and State's Exhibit 6.
Yes,
What address is that one?
it's 22, which is another neighbor.
So after you received and collected all of these envelopes, what did you do with them?
I talked to my attorney and we set up a meeting.
All right. And after you talked to your attorney and set up a meeting, what did he suggest y'all do?
That we would meet with the county investigator, we did with Mr. Bevel, and also to talk to the post office since they were sent through the mail.
And did you in fact have that meeting with law enforcement?
Yes,
And what was the purpose of that meeting?
it was to give them what we call evidence, or the things that we were sent, and ask them what we should do next.
And were you in essence filing a complaint with law enforcement for a potential crime?
I don't understand the question.
Were you going to law enforcement in an effort to give them evidence of a potential crime?
Yes,
And when you're meeting with law enforcement, you say Detective Daniel Bevel
Mhm.
and Mike Nicholson with the Postal Inspector's Office. Did you tell them how you obtained these items?
yes,
And did you discuss who you thought might send them?
yes.
And who did you tell law enforcement that might send these photos or had possession of these photos?
We thought we knew who, of course, was behind them, but we weren't sure who sent them because he was supposedly out of the country.
So who did you tell the detectives had possession of those photos of Christina Parcell without any clothes on?
Mr. Mello?
That's John Mello,
Yes,
and that is who she was engaging in a child custody dispute with over Ida Mello?
yes.
Now, finally, Mr. Post, I'm going to ask you: have you ever met Zachary Hughes?
No,
Have you ever talked to Zachary Hughes?
no,
Have you ever corresponded him with, in any way, shape, or form, through email, social media, or the like?
no.
When was the first time you knew who Zachary Hughes was?
When my attorney sent a meeting to come see me, and he showed me a picture and said this person was arrested for the murder.
For the murder of Christina Parcell?
That's correct.
And a couple more questions, Mr. Post. You and Christina Parcell were engaged.
Yes,
Did you give her a diamond ring?
I did.
Was she wearing it that day on October 13th, 2021?
Yes,
And on that day, did you provide her or give her any flowers the day before or that day?
no,
Didn't give her any roses or anything like that, did you?
no.
Mr. Post, if you could just answer any questions that the defense counsel asked for you.
Cross-examination.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Post, just first question, you just mentioned that you were engaged and that she was wearing the ring. Do you remember telling law enforcement on the day this happened that she wasn't wearing a ring?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay, you don't recall saying that?
No.
You remember, now you're saying you remember seeing her with the ring?
Yes,
Okay. You were also asked if you've been charged with a crime. It's actually 9 charges, is it not?
correct.
You know, ask you about some background questions about yourself. So how old are you?
69,
What's your date of birth?
12856,
And where are you from?
Ohio,
When did you move to South Carolina?
July of, I think, 89.
What brought you to South Carolina?
Employment.
Are you married?
Was I married at the
Were you
time?
married?
Yes,
And how many times have you been married?
twice.
Do you have any children?
No,
How are you making a living in October of 2021?
I was retired, so it was from my investments and interest.
And also from selling a business?
Yes,
Okay. And did you make a lot of money from selling the business?
I don't know what your definition of a lot of money is.
What's your definition? I mean, did you have millions of dollars?
It's actually relevant, Your Honor.
All right. So when did you actually meet Christina Parcell?
I met her at her father's cigar shop. Gosh, I can't, 20 years prior.
And you actually dated for a period of time back then?
Again, that's the definition of date. Yes, we went to lunch or dinner, but it was only a couple of weeks and that was it.
And why did y'all break up at that time?
It just, it wasn't chemistry and we both had other things to do.
All right. And then you reconnected then in about 2016, isn't that right?
That's correct.
And you began dating again at that time?
Soon after.
Had you seen her much in the years between?
No.
Had you seen her at all?
Prior 10 years, no, I hadn't even heard her name.
And then you began dating at this time. Now, Parcell, Ms. Parcell had a daughter at that time, is that right?
That's correct.
You've already testified her name was Ida. that right?
That's correct.
And how old was Aida when they began dating?
I don't know if I defined it when I dating, but when I saw her for the first time in 2016, I think she was 3.
Okay. And she gave up custody of Aida shortly after y'all started dating?
I don't know the exact date, but she did change the custody arrangement.
And you at this time did not know Aida's father, John Mello? Correct?
I knew of him because I was told, but no, prior to, no, I didn't.
Prior to meeting or getting back together with Ms. Parcell, you did not?
Correct.
know Mr. Mello. Okay. And did you break up during the period of time between 2016 and 2021?
Yes.
How many times did you say you broke up?
I really don't know many,
Okay, more than 5?
maybe not. Somewhere I never counted it.
And that was at least in part because of the turbulence that was caused by the custody battle between Ms. Parcell and John Mello?
It was part of it because it was becoming front and center of her life, so it affected a lot.
Okay, but you would continue to get back together. There's multiple times you broke up.
Eventually, yes.
Yep. And how long have you lived at 24 Rivoli Lane?
7, 8 years.
And you mentioned Ms. Parcell and Aida were living with her sister, Tina, on Canebrake Drive.
That's correct.
Where did they live before that?
There's an apartment off of Woodruff.
Okay. And the 3 lived together there too?
Yes.
And did you live with anyone at Rivoli Lane?
I don't understand the question.
Did anyone live with you at Rivoli Lane?
No.
They're alone. Was it? I guess there was one exception that when Ms. Parcell moved in with you from October 20 until Aida returned.
She didn't really move in. She would stay with me because she always had a house or an apartment that was hers.
When did you and Ms. Parcell get engaged?
Honestly, don't remember.
And do you remember getting engaged at least the second time at the airport? Is that right?
That's correct.
And that was when Ms. Parcell returned with Aida.
That's correct.
And there was quite a group around there when you got engaged, right?
That's correct.
Who all was there?
Friends, her parents. Some of the friends I knew, some of the friends I didn't.
Okay. And this was the Greer Spartanburg Airport.
That's correct.
Okay. When Ms. Parcell returned from Italy with Aida.
Yes.
You mentioned letting Ms. Parcell use your Lexus. You would help her financially in other ways as well, right?
She used my car when hers was broken, or she needed to get one because she had her own car.
And you would pay her credit card bill sometimes?
Sometimes.
You actually gave her a credit card of your own?
Yes, whenever she was buying for me and buying my groceries, yes.
Okay. Do you recall being able to have power of attorney over her bank account at the bank of travel address?
I don't recall giving power of attorney.
You don't recall having her power of attorney?
I don't recall it.
Okay. Now, you had a clone of her phone as well, correct?
That's correct.
So this phone that you had of hers would keep track of everything that was going on in her phone. In other words, it was an actual clone. You could see her incoming and outgoing emails, texts, and all of that. Is that not right?
No, it wasn't an exact clone. There were certain applications that we could see. It was mainly for her bills and to make sure that she got home at night.
Okay, but you mentioned also you would use an app called Life 360 to keep track of her too, right?
Yes, and that was on my phone.
Okay, so that was on your phone. That wasn't on the clone phone was for keeping track of what she was doing with her.
It might have been, but I don't remember if it was on that one. Like I said, she had 2 phones at several times, hers and mine.
And what methods did you use to communicate back and forth, like texting and that sort of?
Call, text, email.
Okay, do you remember what platform you would use to communicate?
At the end, we were using one called Signal, knowing that her future, with Mr. Mello, there was something going to happen. And so we used Signal, which we didn't use very long because it was very difficult to use.
Okay. And you mentioned that Ms. Parcell gave up custody of Aida a few months after y'all started dating?
Yes,
And she gave up custody to John Mello.
that's correct.
And then at some point, she changed her mind and decided she wanted custody, correct?
Yes.
And around how old was Aida when she did that?
When she turned over custody?
No, when I think you already told us that Aida was 3 or 4, I think 3 when she gave up custody.
Yes.
How old was Aida when she tried to get custody back?
I don't recall.
Was it years, months after she gave up custody?
I don't recall the time. I just remember the instances that caused her to do it.
and that was because of her contentious relationship with Mr. Mello.
Yes.
Now, when John Mello took Aida to Italy, testified somewhat about that already, but that was around October of 2020, correct?
I think so, but I'm
Does
not
that sound
sure.
right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Does October 2020 sound right?
Yeah, I'd have to get a calendar and work backwards, but yeah.
And you mentioned that when she finally came back, it was in April
Yes,
of 21,
yes.
and they were in the Canebrake house at that point?
You know, I think they were in the apartment and then moved to the Canebrake house almost immediately.
Okay. Now, you used the term kidnap. You are aware that John Mello was exonerated for that,
Afterwards,
right?
but not when he was there. He was found guilty by Italy, the state of Italy, and had to return her.
Okay, well, maybe we're using distinctions here, but he was found to have to give her over to Christina, but he wasn't found guilty of any crimes.
That I don't know.
He didn't go to jail,
That I don't know.
but when he came back here, you were aware that he was exonerated for taking Aida to Italy, right?
After Miss Parcell was dead, yes.
Okay, well, that has nothing to do with it. He was
Has
exonerated.
everything to do with it.
He was exonerated for having taken Aida to Italy because he had custody of Aida. Is that true?
Ask your question again.
Your objections outside the scope of his knowledge.
This is what they were asking. So John Mello had custody of Aida when he took her to Italy.
Yes. That doesn't mean she could be taken out of the country without the mother knowing.
Okay, well, the court's exonerated him for that.
But you know that the Hague Agreement returned her.
Well, I'm talking about in South Carolina.
Mhm.
So for him taking Aida to Italy, since he had custody, he was exonerated for having taken her to Italy.
Eventually, yes.
Okay. And when he took her to Italy, you and Ms. Parcell spent some time trying to find where they were by looking at Facebook and Google and things like that. Is that right?
The context, what you're saying, I don't agree with, but yes, it was quickly found where he was.
Okay. Well, you can explain the answer.
Mr. Mello likes to use Facebook, and he posted a picture of his daughter to kind of show off that he had her in Italy. In the background, there was a poster that showed where he was.
Okay. And then at that point is when Ms. Parcell took all the steps that you talked about trying to get her back. Correct?
Correct.
And you did mention that you helped her with that.
When I could.
And you were helping pay her legal bills. And I know you had an agreement where she was
Yeah.
going to eventually pay you back, but you were giving her money for attorneys.
From times when she needed it because she was working.
Okay. She made 2 trips to Italy, isn't that right?
That's correct.
And the first time she was gone a couple of weeks,
I don't recall being that long, but it was more than a week.
and Lutina, her sister, went with her the first time.
Yes.
And then the second time she went
Well, it's not bad for a quick whip up thumbnail, is it?
back by herself.
Correct.
And that's when she returned from with Aida, and then you proposed to her.
Yes.
Okay, now, I want to ask you a little bit about the packages. So, State's Exhibit Number 1 is the one that's dated
That haircut,
30th of
straight
June,
away.
2021.
Gotta be sus.
That's the first one that you received, is that right?
I think so. I just have to look at the dates, but yes, the earliest.
Okay. This was mailed to your house. And there also were some that were mailed to other locations, but intended for you. Is that right?
I don't think it was immediately, no. That was sent like a warning.
Okay. Well, that was sent first. But where was the other one sent that was intended for you?
To my neighbors and to a place that I have frequented.
Okay. And that was a cigar bar called Outlands?
Yes.
The contents of that have been described, you described as photographs of this person.
Yes.
And you said they were naked photographs. right?
Yes.
Do you recall any of the other materials that were in there?
I think there was a potential mailing list of where else it was being sent, like a threat.
And do you recall one of the pieces of paper that was sent to you being a website purportedly from her?
I don't recall it was there, but I was shown that it was.
Okay. And it's a website labeled Escort Advertising and Discussion?
Oh,
Did you not look at it at that time?
I don't recall, no.
Okay. Were you aware of all of this about her past when,
What are you referring to past? It was the pictures that Mr. Mello had taken that they were using.
we're talking about the website.
Same thing on the website. I was told it was the same
Really?
pictures.
That was what you were told.
That's what I was told.
Well, the website doesn't have pictures associated with it, right?
No, I don't know.
Okay, did you read the contents of it?
No.
No, you can't.
Why did you not read the, why did you not read the information that was in the package that was sent?
Just because I knew it was a threat, and he was constantly trying to separate us and get me to not assist her.
One moment, please. I mean, we approach this.
Oh, I can help.
Step down.
May I please go, we just want to have this witness remain under subpoena.
Under subpoena?
Yes, sir.
No objection.
Now what are they doing? They're whispering. I can hear them. They're not being very quiet. You see, I'm a witness list.
I do. Thank you. Please be seated.
Jocelyn McInnes.
All right, Ms. McInnes, with whom are you employed?
Right now with Fetch Pet Insurance.
And what did you do back in October of 2021?
I was working at Valley Walk Animal Hospital as a practice manager.
And what does a practice manager do?
Just manage just day-to-day operations, hiring, firings, inventory, stuff like that.
And where is that practice located?
In Greer, South Carolina.
And on October 13th, 2021, did you have the occasion to interview Christina Parcell?
Yes, I did.
Do you know about what time she arrived and you interviewed her?
It was 8:30 that morning.
And how do you know that?
I did watch the video footage verifying it, but I also had it on my calendar from back then to verify too.
So, yeah, so the actual interview was interviewed from inside y'all's cameras?
Yes, it was.
And you went back and reviewed that video?
Yes, I did.
And so what time did Christina Parcell arrive to the veterinary clinic?
Right around 8:30
All right. And what was she interviewing for?
for a veterinary technician role.
And what does a vet technician do?
Basically, like what a nurse does for a doctor, just draws blood, vaccines, stuff like that.
And about what time did that interview conclude?
She left at 8:47.
That's all I have this week.
Anything across?
Just very briefly, Ms. McInnes, is that right?
Yes.
Just a couple of questions for you. Was that a full-time position that she was interviewing for?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Were you aware that she was already employed?
Yes, I was at the time.
Okay.
That was one of the questions I asked her.
Okay. Do you know why she was looking for another job?
I didn't ask her that.
Okay. But it was a full-time position that she was looking for.
Yes.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor. She can be released from subpoena. Anything else?
No, Your Honor. Short and sweet.
We are going to stop and have a lunch break, and I'm going to ask for y'all to return at 2 o'clock. I told you I'm going to be a broken record, but just like I said yesterday, you are prohibited from watching any TV coverage of this trial, doing any kind of investigation, any research of anyone involved in this case by any means. You're not to look at any social media. I told you yesterday.
All right, where's the next one? Day 1, part 1. Oh, there's no day one, part two. It goes to day two. All right.
Where were you working in 2021?
Here at Greenville County Forensics
And what specific role?
as a forensic technician.
And could you describe for the jury, what kind of actions you take, what your duties are as a forensic technician when you were with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
So we respond to crime scenes within the county limits. Depending on the crime scene, we can do things such as take photographs, process for fingerprints, collect evidence, just depending on what that specific scene is.
So it's safe to say that collection of evidence on specific crime scenes is one of your primary roles.
Correct.
And same thing would be taking pictures in accordance with that.
Yes,
Were you in that role on October 13th of 2021?
I was.
And how are you involved with the present case specifically related to the crime scene on October 13th of 2021?
I was the primary crime scene investigator for this case.
So you were tasked with processing the home at 122 Canebrake?
I was.
And in your role as a forensic technician, are you subjected to trainings and continued education for that role?
Yes, I have my bachelor's in science and forensic and investigative science. In the past, I've held certifications in bloodstain pattern analysis and fingerprint analysis, and I am currently part of a specialized unit called the Major Crime Scene Team in Albuquerque that responds to all homicides and officer-involved incidents.
Approximately how many crime scenes do you process in a given year?
I would say over 400.
So can you describe to this jury, specifically related to October 13th of 2021, what your process was on arriving at 122 Canebrake and steps you took with your specific role?
So when I arrived on scene, I met with officers and detectives on scene just to get a brief run through of what was going on. After that point, myself and officers did an initial walkthrough of the scene just to see the layout of the house and where things were located.
So when you were doing the layout of the house and going through there, did you take photographs of the outside of the house?
Yes.
And if I show those to you, would you recognize them?
I would.
I'm going to show defense counsel what is State's Exhibit 69 through 84. First witness was 69 through 84. Could you take your time, review those, and let me know if those are the pictures that you took at the outside of the Canebrake home?
Yes, these are the photographs that I took of the exterior.
So that was what the Canebrake home looked like when you arrived on the scene October 13th of 2021?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time the state would move into evidence State's Exhibit 69 through 84.
Counsel? No objection, Your Honor.
All right. 69 through 84 comes in.
Ms. Ford, I'm going to go through these with you. And if you like, I have a pointer here, and you can use it. Starting with State's Exhibit 69. Okay. What is State's Exhibit 69 a picture of?
So that is a photograph of the gray Lexus that was parked in the driveway.
Were you able to identify in the course of the investigation there who was driving the gray Lexus that day?
Yes, it was the victim.
Showing you State's Exhibit 70.
That was the red Mercedes that was parked in the driveway as well.
Who was driving that vehicle?
Mr. Post.
State's Exhibit 71.
That is the front side of the residence showing the windows along the front door.
72.
That is a close-up of the front door.
73.
That is a photograph of the exterior side of the front door handle.
74.
That is the gate on the right side of the residence. If you're standing facing it from the roadway, just showing the gate into the backyard area.
So is that, are you staring at Canebrake Drive there?
Yes.
Is that the red Mercedes in the driveway?
Yes.
75.
That is the photograph of the back or side door of the residence.
And at this time, had the initial deputies already gone through the house?
Yes.
76.
That is a photograph of the backyard.
And so would this be looking to the opposite side that we were just reviewing where the driveway, so
Yeah.
away from the driveway?
Yes, away from the driveway.
77.
That is a photograph of you standing at that gate that we just viewed, looking at the end of the the end of the backyard.
78.
That is just showing a close-up of the creek and what you can see from the backyard.
We're going to go to State's Exhibit 80.
That is the gate on the opposite side of the house, leading into the backyard.
That's looking into the backyard.
Yes.
81.
That is just showing another close-up of the backyard along with the second-story porch.
82.
That is a photograph of the nook that is underneath the second-story porch on the back side of the house.
Now, you called it a nook.
Yes.
If I'm standing on Canebrake Drive, can I see somebody under there?
No, you cannot.
And if I'm standing, let me go back to State's Exhibit 78. In the backyard there, what was the collection of houses like, I'll say, with relation to the backyard of the house?
It was,
Or how close in proximity were other neighbors?
they weren't that close. They were separated by both of their own backyards, including that woodsy area and a creek.
Go to State's Exhibit 83.
So that's just another close-up of that nook area.
State's Exhibit 84.
And now we've moved out into the front yard, and that's just showing a broader photograph of that gate on the left side of the house.
So from where you're standing there, taking State's Exhibit 84, could you see into that nook there that we were just reviewing?
No, you cannot.
After reviewing the outside of the house, did you thereafter go inside the house and do the same process of taking photographs and reviewing the inside the house?
Yes.
If I showed you those photographs, would you recognize them?
Yes.
I'm going to show defense counsel what is State's Exhibit 40, excuse me, 40. Let me get this right. States 38 through 62 and states 63 and 66. showing you the same. Could you please review those and let me know those are the photos you took?
Yes, these are the photographs that I took.
So that was the state of the scene when you entered that day?
Yes.
This time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 38 through 62, as well as 63 and 66.
I'm sorry, you're 1 moment. Your Honor, just subject to our objections that we discussed earlier and the reasons behind so on Exhibit 63 and 66, no other objection.
Okay.
38 through 62, comes to evidence as well as 63 and 66.
Okay, same thing, Mr. Ford. I'm going to go through these with you one by one. Walk through the house with you. Show you State's Exhibit 40.
So that is a photograph of the interior side of the front door, which is in a room that I refer to in my report as the front sitting room. Yes.
Exhibit 38.
That is a close-up of the door handle to that front door, showing that it was in the locked position.
Exhibit 39.
So this is a photograph of the interior of that front sitting room, where you can see the victim and you can see some apparent drag marks as well.
Exhibit 41.
That is just a different view of the same thing, showing there are stains, apparent blood stains on the couch, as well as the pooling underneath the couch. The drag
Her
marks.
hair's nice and
You
shiny.
can see right there is one of the flower stems.
So you noted, you said drag marks.
Yes.
In this photo. Could you explain that a little bit more, how you derived that based on the pattern of the blood that is displayed in this photo?
So yes, as I referred to earlier, there's a pool of blood right there underneath of the couch. From that pool of blood, that blood being on the victim's clothing, when she was moved from that original location, it created the drag marks that you can see there on the floor. And then on top of these drag marks right here are what we refer to as drip stains. That just means that an object or person or thing that had blood on it, that blood volume dripped on top of those drag marks.
You said you identified some flowers or flower stems in this photograph. Could you show me specifically where they are? Is this what you're referring to right here?
Yes.
Okay. Show you State's Exhibit 42.
So that is a close-up of the victim's right hand, mainly noting the chipped thumb fingernail, which is something that really stood out to me on scene.
Why does that stand out to you?
Broken fingernails can be a sign of a defensive, that the person tried to defend themselves. So that's what that broken fingernail kind of portrayed to me.
Are fingernails something you commonly collect in processing a murder scene?
Yes, it's standard procedure, but considering that one of them was broken, it became apparent that we really need to focus on those fingernails.
Show you State's Exhibit 49.
So this is another photograph of that far wall in the sitting room, again, just showing that blood pooling underneath the couch. And then in this photograph, you can also see some more of the rose petals and the leaves that are leading into the hallway.
Were you able to find the victim's phone at the scene?
Yes, the victim's phone, it's kind of hard to see, but it is right there in that blood pool.
Right here?
Yes,
Were you able to collect it?
yes, it was collected.
Who did you subsequently give it to?
I gave it to investigator Sparkman.
I want to bring your attention specifically to the couch.
Yes.
There. What do you notice about the accumulation of blood and what the significance of the location of the blood as it relates to the couch?
So with that blood volume being located there, we call that a pooling of blood. The coagulation of the blood tells me that that a major artery was hit, and that also that is the site of where the initial incident occurred. Along with that, you can see some disturbances in the blood there. That also signifies that the couch was most likely moved after the incident.
Show you State's Exhibit 50.
So this is a close-up of that couch and coffee table area, showing the flower stems that were partially located underneath of that orange pillow and underneath of the table. And it is also showing additional blood spatter that was caused. The location of that blood spatter, since it goes under the table, and the size and shape of those blood stains showed me that the table was also moved back into place after the incident.
Is that the victim's phone there in the bottom corner?
Yes.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 46.
So this is a close-up of those rose petals and leaves that are leading from the doorway to the sitting room from the hallway of the house.
State's Exhibit 45.
So that is the view of the sitting room from the hallway, just again showing those rose petals and leaves.
So that's the hallway looking towards the front door?
Yes.
State's Exhibit 43.
So this is a photograph of the hallway while standing in the living room, just showing how some of those flower petals go into the hallway, and also the discarded pair of sunglasses that was located in the hallway as well.
Exhibit 47.
This is a photograph from a further point in the living room, again, just showing that entryway into the sitting room in the hallway.
So inside, that is the sitting room in that room.
Correct.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 51.
So this is a photograph from on top of that console table sitting in the sitting room where the victim's purse had been located. And it's just showing that some of the rose petals and stems had made it onto that table.
State's Exhibit 52.
This is showing the victim's purse that I was just referencing, and showing that the rose petals were also inside of her purse.
Before, approximately how many murder scenes have you processed?
Say close to 150.
You ever found flowers near the body?
No.
And I'm just gonna go back really quick, 52. To the location of these flowers, were there some found inside her purse?
Yes.
Inside the items on top of the table?
Yes.
It's Exhibit 53.
So that's just another vantage point from the sitting room of all of the rose petals and the leaves that were located in that doorway.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 54.
So that is a blood stain that was located on the wall by the curtains on that front wall of the sitting room.
Were the curtains opened or closed?
The curtains were closed.
55.
So that is a close-up just with scale of that blood stain. That blood stain to me appears to be what we refer to as a transfer stain, meaning that an object or thing with blood on it touched a surface that did not have blood on it.
56.
That is a close-up of one of the gray sitting chairs next to that window on the front side of the sitting room, just showing the blood drops that had gotten into the surface of that chair.
57.
This shows those blood drips that I was referring to earlier near that gray chair. The reason that those are so significant is because they are farther away from that initial pooling that we saw underneath of a couch. So what that means is that the shape of those blood drops tells me they're about 80 to 90 degrees, which means that an object with blood on it was directly over that area of the floor when that blood drop was created.
58. Where is this in that room?
That is over by the wall where those curtains and windows are located.
And that's the same, you're talking about the angle with which this blood was most likely transferred. That's different than what you were saying the drag marks were in the earlier exhibits?
Yes, drip stains are created by a blood drop just falling in motion from gravity, kind of if you had a nosebleed and the blood was just falling out of your nose. Because that area of the living room was so far away from the initial blood pool, that was not caused from the incident. It was most likely caused, again, like I said, from an object or a thing.
I would object to the opinion testimony that's being offered. I mean, this witness has not been offered as an expert, nor do crime scene techs get offered as or qualified as experts. The pictures all speak for themselves, so I would object to opinion testimony being offered.
Yeah, she's testified to her experience in processing hundreds of these scenes. training she's had, while this is not being offered as expert testimony, she's speaking to her rationally based perception of the angle that these blood droplets came from. As to Mr. Moyer's concern, it's right for cross-examination if he wants to offer a contrary opinion or pry into why she derives her opinion, but she's simply speaking to her experience.
I'm going to overrule your objection. It's noted.
So as we were saying, those blood drops were most likely created from an object or a thing that was in that area.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 60.
So that is showing a clump of hair suspected to be the victim's that was found in an area of blood in the sitting room.
Is that area of blood what you described as the drag marks?
Yes.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 62.
So that is a blood stain that was located on that interior side of the front door. That is, once again, what we refer to as a transfer stain, meaning that an object that had blood on it touched a surface that did not.
And finally, State's Exhibit 66.
So this is a photograph of that front sitting room again, where you can see the victim that's located at the end of that drag trail, and additionally another smaller pool of blood, just signifying that wounds were still bleeding at that time.
So you spoke to flowers that were found at the crime scene. Did you collect those and identify those?
I did.
If I showed you pictures of those, would you recognize them?
Yes.
Show defense counsel what's marked as State's Exhibit 85 through 93.
She has got chipmunk cheeks. It's very descriptive. Ow. Oh, she's painted. Fuck off.
Showing you what it State's Exhibit 85 through 93. Are those photographs that you took of the flowers, or some of the photographs that
Yes, they are.
All right, this time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 85 through 93.
No objection, Your Honor.
Objection 85 to 93.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 86.
So that is a bundle, those are bundled stems with a rubber band that were located underneath of that orange pillow in the living room.
That rubber band is on the set.
Yes.
On collection.
Yes.
87.
That is just a different view of those same stems showing the leaves.
89.
So that is a close-up of one of the flowers that was found on the sitting room floor.
You said wildflower.
Yes, it is a wildflower.
That's
Correct.
not a rose.
No,
State's Exhibit 90.
that is just a close-up of that same wildflower, just showing the coloring on it.
I'm going to expand on that a little bit. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 93. Are those the same stem?
No,
So the stem on the right is not a rose?
no, it's a wildflower.
State's Exhibit 90.
Just another close-up of that wildflower.
Approximately how many of the wildflowers did you collect?
I'm not sure.
Safe to say several?
Yes.
In your processing of the house and looking through everything, did you find any vases,
No, I did not.
containers for flowers?
No.
And in processing that house, I assume, did you take several collections for potentially DNA testing or blood testing?
Yes.
What about fingerprint lifting?
Yes.
Now, if someone's wearing gloves, do they leave fingerprints?
No.
After you process the scene, what are your next steps upon leaving Cambridge?
So I secured all the evidence that I collected, and then the next day I responded to the autopsy.
Okay. Did you take some pictures of the autopsy? Let me show you State's Exhibit 109 and 10.
So where is South Carolina? Is it?
109 and 110.
That's
Are these two of the photographs you took? At the
north of you,
Yes.
on the east coast still.
What do they show?
They're showing the decedent's left hand, which contains her engagement ring.
All right, this time the state moves into evidence, State's Exhibit 109 and 110.
Without objection.
Objection.
What are your duties when you're at the autopsy? What kind of things are you doing there?
So at autopsies, we take additional photographs of the victim and
Or just north of South Carolina? Just east of West Carolina?
their injuries, as well as collecting clothing, DNA swabs, otherwise known as buccal swabs, fingernail clippings, head hair samples, and pubic hair samples.
Did you collect buccal swabs?
She sounds like she's
and
intelligent
clippings
too.
from Ms. Parcell?
I did.
If I showed you those collections, would you recognize them?
Yes.
Says buckle instead of
State's
buccal.
Exhibit, 94, 95, 96, and 97.
Oh, bugger. But a 2-hour flight?
Showing you 94, 95, 96, and 97. Starting with 94. What is 94?
94 is the fingernail clippings from the victim's right hand.
And could you describe to the jury, when you're taking these fingernail clippings and autopsy, what is that process like?
So we have a sterile set of nail clippers that we remove from the packaging. We then place a piece of paper towel underneath of the victim's hands. I use those fingernail clippers to clip the clippings from her left hand. And then I do the same process with a different paper towel from her right hand. Those are packaged individually. And then the fingernail clippers are packaged and submitted as well.
And is that what you did here?
Yes.
With both her right and her left hand with respect to 94, 95?
Yes.
What about 96 and 97? What are those?
So these are the buccal swabs that I collected from the victim at the autopsy.
I know we've had some testimony to that effect, but what exactly did you do there to collect those?
So we take a sterile cotton swab and we swab the inside of the person's cheek to collect those cheek cells and get DNA from them.
You collected 2 of those?
I did.
All right, at this time, the state moves into evidence. State's Exhibit.
What's her
94
name?
through 97.
No, I object to the introduction at this time, in that the chain of custody has not been established. These are fungible items, so it would not be proper until the chain is established.
Will you be bringing that later to another witness?
We'll have testimony from another witness, but she is the collector of these items.
Well, until that time. They'll just,
So we're at 112.
Understood.
put it in.
Actually, what
Analysis.
her name for
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Kaylin Ford.
Kaylin Ford.
On taking these samples, being the fingernail samples and the buccal swabs, what thereafter do you do with them?
I take them and I submit them to our property and evidence section.
Presumably for testing?
Yes.
So is she a CSI or I missed that bit too?
Analysis, and I am currently
Safe to say that collection of evidence on specific crime scenes is one of your primary roles.
correct.
And same thing would be taking pictures in
CSI.
accordance with that.
Yes.
Were you in that role on October 13th?
The chain of custody has not been
Sorry.
established. These are fungible items, so it would not be proper until the chain is established.
Will you be bringing that later to another witness.
We'll have testimony to another witness, but she is the collector of these items.
Well, and until that time, they'll just remain armed.
Understood.
Put them in.
On taking these samples, being the fingernail samples and the buccal swabs, what thereafter do you do with them?
I take them and I submit them to our property and evidence section.
Presumably for testing?
Yes.
Yeah, I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
The cross-examination.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Ms. Ford. I just have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Just about those flowers that were talked about quite a bit during your testimony. First off, the ones that you testified are not roses. Was any determination made as to what type of species of flowers, what kind of flowers they were?
Just wildflowers,
When you say wildflowers, what exactly do you mean by that?
things that you just find in someone's yard,
Okay.
just wildly grown in a field.
Okay, and that's just based on your training, or is that based on just your experience of just knowing about flowers?
Just experience about flowers, yeah.
Okay, and the way they were positioned in the house, they were just kind of randomly scattered throughout the house, right?
They were scattered, yes.
Yes, I mean, they weren't in any kind of arrangement or pattern or anything like that.
Yep, they were just scattered.
Okay, one moment, please. Oh, and I'm sorry, just to be clear, when I said scattered, we're talking about the roses and the wildflowers. They were just randomly scattered throughout the house, right?
They were scattered throughout the front sitting room area, yes.
Okay, and so they went basically out into the hallway just a little bit, but it was mainly in that area where the deceased was found. Right?
Yes, there were some in the front of the sitting room, then there were some located near the decedent as well.
Okay. And again, not in any kind of pattern or arrangement or anything like that.
No.
That's all. Thank you.
No redirect, Your Honor. We would ask to recall this witness at a later time.
Thank you.
Right on. And off he goes into the abyss. Away.
Calls Eric Turner.
Don't pine.
Please stop at the end of the bench, sir. Please place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Eric Turner.
And Mr. What is your rank?
I'm a deputy.
Deputy?
Yes, sir.
And who do you work with?
The Greenville County Sheriff's Office.
And what do you do for the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
I work in the school enforcement unit. I'm a school resource officer for several elementary schools in Greenville County on the east side.
And is that typically called an SRO?
It is.
That's
Yes,
school
sir.
resource officer?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Turner, I'm going to refer you back to October 13th in 2021. Were you working that day?
I was.
And were you called out for 122 cane break?
I responded out there. Yes, sir.
Can you tell this jury how you responded?
Sure. I was in between schools. I had just left one. Let me go back. At the time, I had 4 elementary schools. So I had just left a school and was actually headed to Buena Vista, right near where the scene was. And so on my way, the call came out. I was close by. I said, hey, I'll run by there and check on it. It's right there at my school. I just want to make sure there wasn't any threat towards my school. So I responded there, notified dispatch that I was on the way.
About what time did you arrive to the location?
Within, I don't know the exact time, within just a few minutes of the call coming out, I was right behind the first arriving deputy. He was already out of his car.
And once you got there, what did you do?
I stood by with a gentleman later identified as Mr. Post and spoke with him while Deputy Robinson and his trainee went inside to check the residence.
And did you learn that the victim, Christina Parcell, had a daughter?
I did.
And what was your role in regards to her daughter?
So as soon as I found out that she had a daughter, I asked, you know, how old she is, where she goes to school. And he goes, actually, she goes to Buena Vista right there. That being my school, I immediately switched roles and went to, I've got to get to the school to make sure that the school is safe. He gave me just a little bit of background, family background. So I was under the impression, hey, there may be an issue with this child. So I stood by for just a few more minutes and then I left and went to the school to make sure that everything was okay. Prior to me leaving, I actually called our front office at the school and asked, was this student there? And she said, yes, she's here. I said, do not let her leave with anybody. I want the school locked down until I get there. I'll be there in just a minute. So the school handled their protocol, did what they were supposed to do. And then I arrived and made confirmation that she was there. She was in a classroom and she was safe.
So, so as soon as you found out about Christina Parcell's daughter, you arrived at the school. Right?
Yes, sir.
And when you arrived there, did you talk to anybody?
Just the administration. And they confirmed back to me, hey, she's in the classroom. She's good. I'm like, let's leave her there. I don't want anything to disturb her normal day until we figure out what's going on.
And then how did y'all decide when and how Christina Parcell's daughter was going to leave?
We kind of discussed what was going on. I told them, as far as I was concerned, just let her have a regular day. There's no need to take her out of the class and let's just let her proceed with her day, leave as normal. I spoke with a couple of the investigators and it was determined just she can leave with a family member like she normally does. They walk them up to, it's called the front path, goes out of the front of the school and they walk home because they live right there. And so we just allowed that to proceed on as normal, like she does every day.
Please answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
May it please the court. Deputy Attorney, you had a body worn camera that day, did you not?
I did, sir.
And did you take steps to record some of the activities that you engaged in or around Canebrake on that afternoon?
I did. As soon as I got out of the car, I believe shortly after getting out, it was on.
So what time does Buena Vista let out of school typically?
2:15.
Okay. And so maybe it's a silly question, but on that day when school was let out, Ida would be coming home. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And being a school resource officer, you're familiar with issues related to children's attendance in school. Is that correct?
It's really none of my business. If the attendance clerk brings it up, I may do something about it. But
Deputy Turner, if a student at Buena Vista, let's say she didn't want to go home, would the law make her go home?
Objection or speculation.
I'm just asking if he knows that.
I mean, it has happened before, not with me.
But if a student says, I don't want to go home, I'm not going home, must the student go home?
Again, we're going to look into it, probably contact DSS, get them involved in it, our investigators, our crimes against children investigators, and figure out what's going on, why this child doesn't want to go home, stuff like that.
That's further on.
Okay, any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
It's now a good time to take a little break.
The next witness is going to quietly leave.
Okay, thank you. You may step down, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a morning break. Again, no discussion about this case amongst yourselves or anyone. And again, I thank you for your service. Enjoy your break.
I would prefer not to give my home address, but I do live in Greenville County.
Greenville County?
Yes.
And what is your relationship to Christina Parcell?
She's my younger sister.
And so can you tell this jury a little bit about y'all's relationship going back to the 2000s and kind of taking us through that?
Sure. And she was 2 years younger than me, so we were close. We were different people, but we were, close.
Yeah.
In age, close as sisters. Early 2000s, she'd gotten married for the second time.
I did
got
hear
married
that.
the first time. We were both living our lives. We were close, but not intertwined, I guess would be the best way to put it. And we were friends, not best friends, but we were friends. We were
Really?
young enough where all of your childhood,
What for?
younger, older sister relation, all of that baggage hadn't quite gone away yet.
And did she ever begin a relationship with John Mello?
Yes, she began dating Mr. Mello, I believe, around December of 2008.
And in 2008, where were y'all living?
2008, I lived near downtown on Glen Street, right behind Cleveland Park. My sister lived at that time, in her home in Greer with her estranged husband.
And how long did Christina Parcell and John Mello date?
They broke up, to my understanding, October of 2015, so just under 7 years.
And during that time, did she have a child?
She did. She had my niece.
And when was your niece born?
June of 2012.
And so during the time in which Christina Parcell was dating John Mello, what kind of relationship did y'all have?
So they began seeing each other, again, just based off of my sister's papers and all of that sort of thing. December of 2008. I personally had to put things like in place and time. So December of 2009, my dad had his first stroke when he was 51. And within a year, so April or May of the next year, my sister wrote a letter cutting off contact with our whole family, saying that she had reached a new place of spiritual love and needed to only have true and pure love in her life, etc.
And so around 2009, did you see her very often?
I would see her less and less in 2009, and then beginning in 2010, she cut off contact, and we didn't see her for 4 years.
So from about 2009 to 2013?
2010 to 2014, we didn't see her for 4 years.
And did y'all have the occasion to reconnect?
My sister reached back out to my parents July of 2014. My parents found out they had a grandchild, that my niece was 2 years old. My sister began reconnecting. She reached out to me. We met for, I don't know if it's lunch or dinner, but Freddy's Custard and Easley was the first time I kind of got to see her and my niece again for the first time. In 2014.
So during that time, did you know where Christina Parcell was living?
She lived at a house at Easley on 3rd Avenue or 3rd Street. I don't remember Avenue or Street.
And is that where she brought home her daughter?
Yes, my understanding is
She doesn't look as adventurous as the other one. I reckon the other one would be a lot more fun.
I
Just
lived
saying.
with her full time. The photos I've seen of that time period, she had a room.
Oh God.
Photos there. They lived together.
And so she was raising your niece during that first couple of years.
Yes,
Apologise,
my
love.
documentation follows that as well.
If any woman is offended by you saying that another woman is a goddess, then they can.
During that time, did you have the occasion to meet John Mello?
And not so hottie.
Not during the first few years of my niece's life because we didn't have contact. I met him maybe a time or two from 2014 to when they broke up in 2015.
Now, did they ever live together?
No, he was living with his wife at the time.
So around 2014, 2015, you and your sister sort of reconnected.
She reconnected with the whole family, correct?
And did Christina Parcell and John Mello ever engage in disputes over who had rights to their daughter?
For years, yes.
About when did that custody dispute begin?
They broke up sometime in October of 2015, and I know that she had a family court deposition in March of 2016, so almost immediately would be the best I could put it.
So about the time y'all reconnected, she was already engaged in disputes with John Mello over the custody of her daughter.
I don't believe that I don't believe they had begun in 2014 when she first started reconnecting with our family, but within that next year, shortly after they broke up.
So from that point on, were you, and I won't say involved, but were you aware of the dispute, and did you support your sister during that time?
Well, sure. Not financially, emotionally, or, because we had been estranged for 4 years, that is, it sounds so trite. It's a big hurt. This is my baby sister, and I'm trying to find a way to put her back in my life. So even though she was going through this custody battle, I was also kind of trying to get over my hurt feelings with her. So we interacted, but we weren't, again, tied at the hip best friends at that point.
So as time goes on, did the custody dispute continue?
For years, yes.
And did Christina Parcell begin a relationship with Brad Post?
Yes, she did.
About what time did she begin that relationship?
again, based on documentation I've seen in her effects, within a few months of ending things with John Mello.
So around 2015.
Yes.
And so pushing up to 2020 timeframe, did your relationship with her grow closer?
Yes, in January of 2020, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, which is scary, and you drop something. It's scary, it's aggressive. My sister and I met for lunch, and we're making a plan for how are we going to get my mom through this. If something happens to mom, how are we going to take care of our dad? He's had multiple strokes. And during this lunch, she looked at me and said, I really want you to be a bigger part of my life and my niece's life. And so we started consciously choosing to be more involved with each other.
And at that time, where was everybody living?
So at that time, COVID, I was sheltering in place with my estranged husband in my marital home in Greer. That's awkward, but it was. My sister, again, she rented a duplex. So when she had visitation with my niece, they would do those visitations in the duplex. And then when she was not living in the duplex, she spent her time with Brad Post.
Okay. And up until about 2020, did John Mello and Christina Parcell share custody of Aida?
Early on, I hate this phrase, but it's the only one I can really know. They had a gentleman's agreement early on about custody that suddenly nobody agreed to, so they went into court. John had primary custody. My sister had visitation, standard visitation every other weekend, weeks during the summer, time on birthday and Mother's Day, at the holidays. I think it's Richards Brown. I don't remember the name.
And so, and during all this time, was there litigation going on between the two?
Yes, multiple times.
So I'm going to take you to about October of 2020.
Yes.
Did John Mello leave the country with your niece?
Yes, he emailed my sister and said, we won't be here for the next visit weekend, can't make it to the next visit weekend, something to that effect, and missed the court-ordered scheduled visitation. Didn't know where or why necessarily until shortly after when we discovered they were out of the country.
And so in October of 2020, where was Christina living? That same duplex?
So no, in, again, March going to April of 2020, I'm sheltering in place with my now ex-husband, so super great. I decided I didn't want to do that, and I'm getting an apartment for myself. And my sister had just said, I want us to be closer, and her lease on that duplex was coming due in that spring of 2020, and I told her, I'm getting an apartment. I can get a 3-bedroom apartment. I clearly am a army of one and don't need a 3-bedroom, but if I got a 3-bedroom, then you could have your visit weekends with me, and we can spend time together. We have a playground, have a pool, et cetera, et cetera. So summer going into fall of 2020, my sister had her visit weekends with my niece in my apartment. And then she, again, was living for the most part with Post non-visit weekends or non-visit weeks.
And was Christina Parcell working during this time?
Yes, she was a vet tech.
Was she a full-time vet tech or?
No, at that time she was part-time.
So in 2020, y'all discover that your niece has left the country with John.
Yes.
Did this sort of set off a new set of litigation as far as the custody dispute is concerned?
Yes, she filed a rule to show cause in family court under the then agreement that she had, because they had reached an agreement. He was in violation of that agreement. Rule to show cause was, the family court equivalent of you broke the agreement. Once we determined where he was, and she had already spoken to family court, her lawyer, Greenville County, tried to reach out to SLED, tried to reach out to the FBI. Once we discovered where they were, started investigating, how do you get someone back from a foreign country?
And was she dedicated to trying to get her daughter back?
Every day.
So what did she do?
Once we finally figured out that there is a Hague Convention for child abduction, not just war crimes, but truly for child abduction, reached out to the State Department. Her first contact was Zach, and then the second contact was a woman named April Conway. And essentially, you go through this entire application of the circumstances. You have to provide the court orders, the existing orders, that funnels up through the State Department to, they call it the central authority. So the U.S. central authority then reaches over to their counterpart in whatever the country is, because this happens for all of these countries that are a part of the convention. And then it goes down their chain. In this case, it was Italy.
And when did she start that process?
Oh, we found out where they were late October, early November, so probably November, possibly December of 2020.
And again, how did you find out that your niece was in Italy?
Her father posted a photo on Facebook of her standing in, I think, like a cobblestone plaza type situation. It was nighttime. There was a banner on the wall behind her that said the name Rovigo, Italy. And once we began searching down that rabbit hole, we found an online news article.
Were you having any contact with your niece at that time?
First time my sister got to speak with my niece was Christmas Day of 2020, so it had been 2.5 months.
All right, so you mentioned this Hague Convention. Did Christina continue to pursue that and in fact have some hearings in Italy regarding the ultimate custody of your niece?
Yeah, so when you go through this process with The Hague, I am not an expert, but this is one of those things that kind of sticks with you. Since it goes through the central authority, essentially that other country, their government is acting on your behalf. So the equivalent of Walt in Italy was representing my sister. It's not that she had to hire an attorney. The state or the nation of Italy was doing it because this is all international agreements and arrangements. All communication was done to her through the State Department. So they channel up, it goes over, it comes down and back and forth. The State Department let her know that a hearing had been scheduled for February of 2021 and that she could attend either virtually or in person. And she called me to let me know I was at work. She called me and I asked her if she wanted to go and she said yes. And I asked her if she wanted me to go with her and she said yes. So I bought 2 round-trip tickets that day.
And did y'all ultimately go to Italy for a hearing?
We flew out of Atlanta on Wednesday, March 10th. We arrived in Venice, Italy at the Marco Polo Airport. The things to stick with you. We arrived around noon that Thursday. Court was the morning of Friday. We flew back to the States that Sunday.
And were you successful in getting your niece back?
We were nothing at getting my niece back. There was no decision reached in that trip in March. They said they would deliberate and they would reach out with more information.
Now, when you were there, did you get to see your niece?
Did I lay eyes on her? Yes.
Did you get to speak with her?
And again, this is just based on what happened, not I know the rules of Italy. But when we were there, they said the mother has to go in, the father has to go in, and the minor child cannot go in. He brought her to court, and she was not allowed to go in the courtroom, and she had to stay outside of the courtroom. I couldn't go in because I wasn't a party. She was now an unattended minor in a foreign country, which is, again, not great. And they asked if I would watch her. His attorneys asked that I not speak with her. That wasn't a court order. It was just, hey, can you sit here and watch her and not say anything?
And was John Mello there as well?
Yes, he's the one that brought my niece into court for that hearing.
So did y'all ever return back to Italy again?
My sister returned to Italy. So this was in March of 2021. She again received notice from the State Department it felt like forever, of course, but a few weeks later, either end of March, beginning of April, there's another hearing. Again, you can attend virtually or in person. She said, I want to go in person. I asked if she wanted me to go again, and she said, no, I'll go by myself.
And so did she fly to Italy?
She did fly to Italy, give or take tax day.
And was she successful in getting the return of your niece?
At first, there was no decision reached, and they said you can leave and come back when we decide. She opted to stay, and a few days later, I can check my records for actual dates. A few days later, they let her know that they had decided to repatriate. Italy repatriated my niece to my sister. John Mello and my niece were brought to a police station. Aida was given to my sister. My sister then had to wait a week to get a replacement passport for my niece because hers had expired when they were in Italy.
While Christina was over there, did she have to hire bodyguards?
We had 2 bodyguards. When we were there, we weren't allowed to, because again, COVID, we weren't allowed to take public transportation. We weren't allowed to sit down in restaurants. So we did have 2 people that were hired to both provide some protection for that day in court, but also to get us from point A to point B while we were in court. And she had the same staff were hired when she got back.
So what day did Christina and your niece return?
April 22nd of 2021.
So when they returned, to what residence did they initially go?
They started living with me full-time in the apartment that we discussed. The lease on that apartment was up in the middle of May, so I'd already started making arrangements to live somewhere rather than renew the lease on the apartment.
And so did you eventually secure another location?
I had made an offer to buy the Canebrake home December 17th of 2020. I'd already been trying to buy that house for 4 months.
And did y'all eventually move into 122 Canebrake?
We moved into 122 Canebrake on May 14th of 2021.
So when once y'all moved in, You and who all live there?
I was in the master bedroom, a nice tan with wood trim and a big window. My sister was across the hall in a not great yellow bedroom. My niece was down the hall from her in what came as a hot pink bedroom. And she was thrilled about that. So it was the three of us. I had chosen this home. It was large enough. There was an ensuite. You saw it in the walkthrough. The salmon color in the back had its own full bathroom, and that was going to be where my parents could live if they needed to in the future. Those were the three of us.
So you talked about this custody dispute, let's call it before John Mello and your niece went to Italy.
Yes.
And now we're past that. During this time frame up until May of 2020, how would you describe the dispute, this custody dispute between Christina and John?
It was active until the moment she died. There were still hearings while he was in Italy. He did not return to the United States for the, I guess it was 5 months, 3 weeks that they were here, almost 6 months. He would attempt to retain counsel, or did retain counsel, though it attend a hearing on his behalf. There was a hearing with regards to when could phone calls happen.
Did y'all ever fear for your safety or anybody or your niece's safety or your safety?
We wouldn't let her play outside by herself. It is a beautiful neighborhood, an exceedingly safe neighborhood. I mean, kids everywhere. So it's not that the neighborhood wasn't safe. We just didn't want her to be playing by herself. We didn't want her to get taken. The front window, part of why we always left it open was so we could see the front yard if she was out there.
Did John Mello ever do anything that made y'all feel unsafe?
Can you be more specific with your question with regards to place and time?
Around that time.
Around that time, I can't say if it was John Mello or not. I know that my employer received an anonymous packet full of John Mello and my sister's family court documents, and I know my sister didn't send it.
About the end of June and July, did you do you remember Christina and Brad Post receiving some envelopes?
Yes, I didn't. Many envelopes. It was kind of a flurry of activity as to had all of them arrived in our neighborhood, his neighborhood, the guardian, her attorney, her employer. It was.
Were you aware of the contents of those photos?
Yes.
I mean, of those envelopes?
Yes.
What were the contents of those envelopes?
If it were something that existed in South Carolina, I would call it revenge porn, but apparently that's not illegal here.
So they were
naked pictures of my sister.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1 for identification purposes only. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 1A and 1B. I'm going to ask you if you recognize these photos. I'm sorry to have to show you these to you.
Yes, that is my sister, Christina.
And then I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 6, envelope State's Exhibit 6, and ask you if you recognize photos 6A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Yes, those are all my sister.
So, y'all received these about June and July of 2021.
Yes.
Now, did your sister go to the police?
Yes, she went to the police. She went to a postal inspector.
In regards to the photos, how do you know that's your sister?
I'm going to try not to be I recognize her, having known her her entire life. I recognize her haircut. I recognize her tattoos.
And can you give this jury a time frame of when those photos were taken?
Based on the length of her hair and again the state of her tattoos, I would say somewhere between 2010 and 2011.
And was that the time in which she was dating John Mello?
That's correct.
Now, so how old would Christina Parcell be?
She was born in 1980, so 2010 she would have been 30, 2011, 31.
30, 31.
Mhm.
So now I'm going to take you to, well, when did y'all move in? When did you move into the canebrake house?
May 14th of 2021.
So from then until October 13th, 2021, what was life like?
Well, it was still COVID, but it was less COVID-y than it had been. So my niece joined the swim team and played her first team sport. She had friends in the neighborhood. She miraculously was promoted from 3rd to 4th grade, even though she missed 6 months of that school year. I worked downtown. My mother would come and babysit if Christina and I both had to work, or maybe our schedules overlapped. And I know that this sounds odd, but I would text my sister, I'm coming home, can you chop the onions? I'm making this for dinner, or I'm going to the grocery. I mean, it was a really standard. We were living together, and we have a kid, and school, and etc.
So I'm going to take you to October 13th, 2021. Where were you working that day?
I worked at a company called Norris Financial Group in downtown Greenville.
And we've seen video of your car leaving. Do you remember about what time you left to go to work?
That's not my car. That was a rental. But I left, give or take, 8:30 that morning.
And with work?
I did go to work, yes.
And when did you realize that this incident happened?
I had a voicemail. My phone hadn't rang, but I had a voicemail. It's a thing that happens sometimes. And it was from Brad Post saying there's an emergency at home. Emergency at the house. You need to come home. And so I grabbed my purse, walked into the hall, told my boss, there's an emergency at the house. I'm going to go home. And made my way to the car.
And before you left for work, what was going on inside the household as far as Christina and your niece and everybody?
Do you mean
About what time did
that?
they
Do you mean
wake
that morning? Okay. I slept a little later than normal. Who knows why? And Christina had a job interview, so she was not necessarily up earlier than normal, but trying to get the day started and out the door earlier than normal. So she took Aida to school while I was drinking my morning coffee in that middle sitting room, where we called it the den. That's where we spent our time. Christina came back. She had forgotten the school communication folder that you're supposed to bring back every week. She had forgotten that. So she came back to the house to get the school communication folder and stood in the doorway and said she had a hair appointment that afternoon and it was gymnastics that afternoon. And what are we going to cook for dinner? And then she said, I love you, bye. And she walked out the door.
And when did you first hear about this incident?
The voicemail from Post said there was an emergency. And as I was going back to my car, he called again, and I went straight to voicemail. So I called him back, and he said, it's her. I think she's dead. And so I got there as fast as I could.
Did you ride back at the house?
Give or take 11:30 that morning, yes.
Now, in regards to your house, what door do y'all namely use to enter and exit the house? And which doors do you have keys to? Explain to this jury your front and side door.
Yeah. So I made an offer December of 2020, less than a year into COVID. And what neither I nor my realtor knew, this house was under foreclosure. We didn't know that. And because of COVID, all foreclosures were under a moratorium. So it was in foreclosure, but they, not done in foreclosure. And kept trying to complete the sale and couldn't get the final number that you had to have, the close number, the actual dollars you had to have. So by the time the lease was coming up on the apartment, I have to have a place to live. I want to buy this house. So we had what's called an occupancy prior to purchase agreement, where you're essentially renting the house from the people that own it. So we had this, so I could move in before I owned the house, but it's still a rental. So we had keys for the front door only. We didn't have a key for the back door. And since I didn't own the home, I couldn't change locks. It was a rental. So when we came and went day in, day out, we would go through that front door. That first month, more than one occasion, we would go out the back door, go play in the yard, try and come back in the back door and get locked out because we had no key for the back door. And like I crawled in through the garage one time to get in the house. So when we were home,
When you say back door, is that the door down the side of the driveway?
Yes, I would go into the sunroom, which was my office. And so when we were home, we would leave that door open, but really tried to be diligent to lock it up at night when leaving, etc.
So you would lock both doors when y'all were going to sleep at night?
Yes, and it's just part of that nighttime routine. You go, you check the doors, you turn off the lights, slide the deadbolt on the front door because it had a little slidey lock, and then go on down the hallway.
So if you were going to get out of your car in your driveway and you're coming home from work, which door would you typically use?
Always the front door, not typically, always.
Always the front door.
Yes.
So it would be normal for if Christina Parcell arrived home from a job interview, which door would you imagine she would enter into?
She could only enter the front door.
So what about the curtains in the front of the front room?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, they were kept open.
And what was that front room's meant for?
So it's a standard ranch house where you have that front long, skinny, formal living room that nobody uses unless you're the kind of person that has furniture with plastic on it, and that's not my life. So yeah, I see that. You know what I'm talking about. But that front window got a lot of light. So, and you saw in some of the photos, my sister kept her plants there. We had my 2 silver chairs. The neighborhood kids and my niece would do puzzles in that room, arts and crafts. My sister had a desk where she did her schoolwork. That was in front of the smaller window, but it wasn't the TV room or the family congregation eat dinner room. We did that in the den on the other side of that wall.
And so when you left that morning for work, were those blinds open or were they closed?
We always left because it was always open. Blinds and curtains were always open to get lights in for the plants. We didn't keep a light on in that room, so we weren't concerned, say at nighttime, we weren't concerned people were going to see us through that window because we didn't do anything in that room at nighttime that people would see. We were on the other wall, so it was just always open.
So when on this incident, did you talk with law enforcement about that day? Did they interview you? Did you talk to them?
Yes, I sat in Investigator Sparkman's vehicle, and he said, "Tell me the history of your sister." And I said, "How far back do you want me to go?"
Did you got to tell them what you told us here today?
And then
More or
some,
less.
yes.
Did you tell him anybody you thought might have done this?
I said, I absolutely believe John Mello did it.
Did you know where John Mello was located?
I knew he was supposedly in Italy, but who knows?
And Ms. Parcell, have you ever met Zach Hughes?
No.
Have you ever spoken to him?
I've spoken at him, but no, never with him.
Prior to October of 2021, have you ever spoken to him?
No.
Ever seen him before?
No.
Noticed him?
No.
Have you ever seen Christina Parcell talk to him?
No.
You've never been to the house?
Oh, no. I'm not while I was there. I wasn't there 24/7, but no.
Did you know her to ever have any communications with him?
I found this week when I was reviewing all of the legal files, an email John Mello sent to my sister where he CC'd.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Parcell, you've heard testimony here today, yesterday, that there was cocaine, small bag of cocaine found in that front sitting room. Do you ever use cocaine?
No.
Did y'all keep cocaine in the house?
No.
Did you know Christina to use cocaine?
I've never seen her do cocaine.
And we've discussed this child custody dispute. Was there a guardian appointed to your niece?
Yeah, so once my niece was taken and my sister filed a rule to show cause, which essentially opens up the prior action that had been settled, the court appointed a guardian ad litem to act in the best interest of my niece.
And would the guardian keep in contact with Christina Parcell?
The guardian was in very frequent contact with Christina. The guardian did home visits of my apartment, number one, because that's where I would have been returned to. She also did a home visit of Canebrake. I'd have to check paperwork to see if Christina took drug tests during that time. There were many over the years. So.
You know that she was asked to take drug tests?
Oh, many times over the years.
Had you ever known Christina to use cocaine?
No.
All right, Ms. Parcell, if you'll just answer any questions.
Good morning, Mr. Purcell. My name is Mark Moyer. I have some questions for you today. Okay. So just want to start off with a little bit about your background with Ms. Purcell. You said Christina was about 2 years younger than you, is that right?
2 years, 4 days.
2 years, 4 days. And you all began living together the first time with a Woodruff Road apartment, is that right?
I had room in my apartment designated for her to have visitation with my niece. Yes.
Okay, so y'all weren't living together at the
As I testified to earlier, she had visitations with my niece under my roof at that apartment, but my sister herself typically lived with hosts during those times.
Okay, and it
No.
wasn't until you all moved into the Canebrake house that y'all were living together?
No, as I testified earlier, when my sister and my niece returned from Italy, April 22nd of 2021, my niece and my sister lived with me full time. The first few weeks, I was still at the apartment, but we moved into Canebrake May 14th of 2021.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about the custody disputes that were going on. You said you did not stay very much involved in the actual disputes at the beginning of that. Isn't that right?
No, that is not actually the character of my testimony. What I said was that my sister and I were becoming closer and essentially trying to get closer after she had cut contact with me for 4 years. So that's not something you get over quickly or immediately.
I understand, but that kept you from staying very much in tune with exactly what was going on at that time. Right?
Well, that and John Mello threatening to have me charged with kidnapping, that also had a factor in it.
Okay. And you gave up, Christina gave up custody of Aida to John Mello, didn't you?
No, I don't believe that's actually accurate, and I would like to make sure it's accurate. As I testified earlier, she and Mr. Mello had a quote-unquote gentleman's agreement, and then when my sister was not receiving the visitation she thought she was too, that's when the actual court actions began, which is not in any way, shape, or form the same as giving up custody, I believe.
Okay, but John Mello had primary custody.
I believe that the agreement was written that he had custody and she had visitation, correct?
Okay, so that was in the court documents, that he had custody, and she didn't dispute that. She didn't fight that, did she?
She had fought that repeatedly, trying to get custody, and then would reach an agreement with him.
But not initially. When that first document came out, where John got custody, when John Mello got custody, she did not,
Mr. Mello had physical custody before there was a document in that original Pickens County family court action. Mr. Mello had physical custody and was not allowing my sister to have visitation, so she took him to court and then reached an agreement where he retained custody, but he was not granted custody by the court.
okay, but she reached an agreement, so they didn't have to fight it out in the courts because she allowed him to have custody, correct?
That is the agreement which she reached. That's not the same as allowing, but
So she agreed to it. That's what an agreement is, right? Correct?
she entered that agreement, yes.
Okay, thank you. And it was not until Ida was taken to Italy by John that she began trying to get full custody. Is that true?
No, they had multiple family court cases. Sometimes she initiated, sometimes he initiated, trying to modify the agreement that they had.
And it wasn't modified until after she came back, Ida came back to Italy, right?
Honestly, I would have to check the paperwork.
Okay. Now, you had met Brad Post before he started dating Christina in 2015 or 2016, correct?
He was a customer at my father's cigar store.
And that was somewhere around 2000 or 2001 when you met him?
I couldn't tell you. He was a person that sat in my father's cigar store, so I couldn't tell you the first time I noticed him as a human being. No.
Okay, you worked for him for a period of time?
No, I did not.
You don't remember?
My sister worked for him. I did not.
Your sister did. You never worked for him?
My father?
No, you never worked for Brad Post.
So I worked for the company. It was originally called eBridge Technologies. It was owned by Braddock Cunningham. It was a software company. That is where I worked. And then Mr. Cunningham is the one who began purchasing NC&E, Network Controls and Electric. So no, I did not work for Brad Post. I worked for Brad Cunningham, who purchased NC&E from Brad Post.
Okay, so if Brad Post says that you work for him, that would be incorrect?
Never heard him say I work for him, so I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, I'm saying if you did, you told this department that you worked for him for a period of time, that would not be true?
No, I work for eBridge Technologies, which again, I don't want to say subsidiary, I didn't do any of the paperwork, but eBridge Technologies, that software company, kind of merged with Network Controls and Electric once Brad Cunningham became the person that was buying NC&E.
Okay. Christina was working part-time at the, as a vet tech, correct?
Correct.
When she died. And Bradley Post was helping her out financially, was he not?
I couldn't give you any type of dollar amounts, but I assume so.
Was he helping with the house at Cambridge?
No.
Okay, but you all had conversations about when you were having trouble getting the house. Did you not have conversations with Christina about getting Brad Post involved to help with that?
No, I unequivocally did not want Brad Post involved.
So you never talked to Christina about, you never sent her an email or said, you know, this house is more expensive than I thought, so maybe Brad Post could buy it and then we could rent from him?
No. So I found out October 9th, 2021, that the people I was trying to buy the home for, again, it was in foreclosure. Foreclosures were in forbearance because of COVID, and the dollar amount, the cost to close kept going up, going up, going up. My realtor called me that Saturday and said, it's got to be this much. It was approximately 10-15% more than I was approved for. And I told her, I can't do that, but give me a couple days. I'm going to figure something out. And so my sister and I began texting new houses to try and buy a different house, which meant I was looking for a new house at the time my sister was murdered, which means I was not trying to have Brad Post buy Cambridge so I could rent it from him.
Okay. Now, when John Mello took his daughter and Christina's daughter to Italy, he had the primary custody at the time.
That was the agreement, and also he was to allow visitation as per the agreement he reached in family court, yes.
And he was a dual citizen of
I
this
know
country.
he claims to be a dual citizen.
He's a dual citizen of this country and Italy, is that true?
I know he claims to be a dual citizen. I cannot ascertain the truth of that statement.
And you know, your niece became an Italian citizen while she was in Italy.
I know he claims she became an Italian citizen. I cannot ascertain the truth of that statement.
Okay. And you talked about having a bodyguard or someone to drive you around while you were in Italy and then back here. Brad Post was paying for that, wasn't he?
I don't know who paid. I didn't see an invoice.
So when Christina went to Italy in mid-April for the final hearing, she went alone that time, as you testified, correct?
Oh, I didn't go with her. That's correct. I understand she went alone.
And she returned to this country with Ida, right?
She returned with my niece April 22nd when they landed in Greenville.
And you met her at the airport?
Yes, I did.
The guardian ad litem was there?
Yes, she was.
Brad Post was there?
Yes, he was.
Who else was there?
Representative from Lindsey Graham's office was there. Friends of the family were there. My parents, people, my sister's neighbor from the duplex where she used to live, and her children were there.
And Brad Post was there?
As I said earlier, yes, he was there.
And he proposed to her at the airport, didn't he?
That was a choice that he made, yes.
And then there was a welcome party later that night. Too?
No, sir. Everybody was
Hello,
at the
mister.
airport with
Hello.
balloons with signs. My sister and my niece got back into my car. I took them to the apartment. I picked up Indian takeout food, and we ate Indian takeout food at my home that night.
Okay, the welcome party was what happened at the airport.
Yes.
And so just to be clear then, Aida was out of the home and gone between October the 5th of 2020 and then mid-April of 2021, correct?
My understanding is, October 4th, but again, since I was not there when they left the flight, I would have to check documents.
And you all moved into the Cambridge house on May the 14th of 2021, right?
That's correct. That's when the movers came on Friday the 14th.
Okay. And you testified today something that contradicts what you told Investigator Sparkman in your interview about the where everyone stayed in the house.
I was in the tan room, the master room in the back with the bay window, right over the nook. My sister was across the hall in the yellow bedroom. My niece's bedroom was the hot pink bedroom just down the hall.
Okay, you told Investigator Sparkman that room had been turned into a playroom and that your niece
No,
stayed.
the purple bedroom was going to be the designated playroom.
Did you not remember telling Investigator Sparkman that your niece slept in the bed in the same room with Christina?
No, I'm not saying she didn't. I'm saying there were times that she would sleep there. She would sleep on the couch. She might sleep in her bed. And my understanding is she co-slept with her father as well.
And you told
Investigator Sparkman, though, that she didn't have a room, that the room that was supposed to be for her was turned into a playroom, and that she stayed with Christina.
I don't believe I said that she didn't have a room. It clearly had her toys in it, had her clothes in it, had her bed in it. Now, again, I had just discovered that my sister was dead in my house and I was homeless, so it's entirely possible I misspoke, and for that I apologize.
That was several days later, on the same day.
And again, I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Okay. Now, Brad Post would come by the house every day, would he not?
I can't say it was every day, depending on the mercurial relationship. Sometimes they were in a better spot. So there would be times where he wouldn't come over at all. There would be times where he would come over and have dinner.
Okay. But while they were dating and not broken up, as you told Investigator Sparkman, Brad Post would come over every day. Isn't that true?
Bless you. Again, not a matter of broken up. If they were in a good patch or a bad patch, as anybody is having a good patch or a bad patch, there would be times he'd be there every day, yes, for dinner or what have you. There would be times where he wasn't.
Now, you mentioned Ida wasn't allowed to play outside
No, I said we wouldn't let her play outside by herself.
by herself. So, and you mentioned that she had friends in the neighborhood. So would friends come over and play inside with her? In the
Well, no,
house?
she would play outside with friends. We would do our best to again, keep an eye out on her, on the friends, as any adult would do to make sure the children are going to be safe, especially the creek nearby. So she would play in the house, outside the house.
Okay. And her friends would play outside with her and play inside with her?
Yes.
Now, I have to ask you just a few questions about the packages that you received, that you were asked about by the solicitor. You mentioned the pictures that were in the packages, but in addition to the pictures, there were some website postings that were included, were there not?
I wasn't shown any by the solicitor.
Do you remember when you looked at the packages, though, do you remember seeing the website from the escort service?
I saw that there was something textual. I didn't lend credence to it.
And again, I hate to have to ask you about this, but were you aware of that part of your sister's past?
I was aware the allegations had been made in family court, just like there had been allegations made I was going to try and kidnap my niece. So I didn't lend credence to them.
Are you aware that she gave a deposition in which she did give credence to those allegations?
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained.
So after the death of your sister, Christina, where was Ida?
I'm sorry, could you clarify the question?
After your sister died, where was your niece?
I would also ask you to rephrase that question to be accurate.
Okay, who did your niece live with?
So after my sister was murdered, what is the question for that?
Where did your niece live?
The guardian ad litem, after my sister was murdered, got an ex parte emergency placement with me. My niece and I stayed with friends, and that's where we went.
All right, and then what happened with Aida on October the 19th of 2021?
She was put into foster care.
Okay, and what time of day was it?
It was at night.
Okay, and the police came and got
Why?
her?
Yes.
About what time of night?
It was approximately 10:30 at night.
Okay. How long were the police at the house on that day?
I don't know, maybe an hour, less.
And she was taken into emergency protective custody at that time?
Yes.
Why?
And who got custody of Aida?
Would you clarify the question, please?
Where does Aida live now?
Oh, I've reached an agreement with Mr. Mello right now.
Okay, so you gave up custody to allow.
I never had custody, but
You dropped your petition to try to get custody.
I did not drop a petition. I reached an agreement with Mr. Mello,
Okay.
and he has custody.
Okay, you never had custody of Aida.
I had ex parte custody briefly.
Okay, and then after Aida was taken out of the home, shortly thereafter, she went to live with John Mello, and she still lives with John Mello. Right?
She was not with John Mello for the first almost year and a half after her mother's death, almost 2 years. She was in foster care, and then she was in third-party placement. He did not receive custody of her until August of 2023.
Okay, and she remains with him.
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
And John Mello was exonerated of the charges of taking Aida to Italy. Is that right?
I believe what you're looking for is a directed verdict of not guilty, not actually exonerated by a jury. Yes.
So a judge threw it out, basically.
A judge said South Carolina state law says a non-custodial parent has no rights to their child. Yes, that is correct.
So a judge threw it out. One moment.
Look at that anger. She's like, fuck you. Fuck you. Why did the child go into foster care? I don't get it. If they had a family member that was happy to take her on. That's normally what they do, isn't it?
We have right now. Thank you.
Just briefly, Your Honor. After the murder of your sister, where did your niece go?
Are you talking short term or long term?
Both.
Again, she was ex parte emergency placed in my care. She was removed from my care and put in foster care for 2 months. After that, she was placed with Allison and Lamar Sutherland from December of 2021 until December of 2022, where she was then placed with her half sister, Isabella Mello, John Mello's eldest child. She was there until August of 2023. And then in August of 2023, when I reached an agreement with Mr. Mello, where I had visitation and my niece was returned to his custody.
And have you seen your niece?
I've not seen my niece since August of 2024.
And do you have rights to see her?
I do.
And have those been complied with?
We currently have active family court action.
So you and John Mello are now in a family court action over the custody or access to your niece.
There is a new action, and the agreement that we reached is currently being appealed in South Carolina State Court of Appeals.
No further questions.
Okay. Any recross?
No recross, Your Honor. We would just ask that the witness remain under subpoena.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I see counsel.
I want to know why the child was put into foster care in preference to a family member. And this John Mello sounds like a prick. Oh, looks like they're on lunch break. Yep. All right, well, I might finish up here and continue the second half.
Again, no discussion about this case among yourselves. How you researched.
And do the second half Wednesday, because we've got Tandem True Crime tomorrow. Yay! Now, let me. There you go. I'm back. I've got notifications coming in from Court TV and Law and Crime Trials, and they've frozen on my screen. And it's covering the chat. That's why I'm putting everything up on the screen, because I can't read the bloody thing. So, all right. Well, we will continue where we left off on Wednesday. And tomorrow's Tandem True Crime, the Gangland Wars. So we shall see you for that. I don't know if you saw it, but the award, the Dipshit Award for the Megan Boswell trial has been issued. Yeah. That's, I'm going to have to do some reading because I'm a bit confused. I need to deep dive a little bit for myself, just for my own understanding. So, thank you once again for joining me. We will follow the other trial when it's set to go on the 18th of March. Gets me when they do that sort of stuff, but never mind. We got there in the end. So, Teresia, look after yourself, please. Make sure everyone stays safe. I'm thinking of you. Udahef, have a nice swim to South Carolina. And I'll see you again, same time, same place, same bat channel, tomorrow night. Hasta la vista.
Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests. Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule and the defense rests.